Oh, my soul, and all that is within me, bless your holy name, Lord. You are truly, truly faithful. Let's get into some boxing, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'm going to tick off a lot of those purists out there, and I'm going to tick off some of those historians because a lot of these guys and a lot of these so-called fight fans, they're very inconsistent in how they judge things and their point of views. So this video is going to tick off a lot of people, and I really don't care. So we're going to get to the crux of it, because when you BS, you BS, and you're full of shit when you're full of shit, because you must not be hypocritical in this world. This article here, which was done by Boxing News, on Boxing News 24, basically typifies exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So this article here talks about all the achievements of some of the current people and more recent fighters and stuff. It talks about Muhammad Ali, Marky Marciano, and Floyd Mayweather. But that's not where I'm coming from. It's the popular sentiment by some fans in the industry and some purists about why the past greats are better than the present ones. And so there are a number of critiques, but I'm just going to go through one of them. So here we are. The writer says, I have nothing but utter respect and admiration for Ali, Marciano, Floyd Mayweather Jr., and other modern-day boxers that started in the 60s and up. They box good quality opponents and have great records, but they are by no means top 10 tiers, much less considered the greatest of all time. None of the fighters above and presently handle fighting 12 to 17 times per year, and I have no doubt they would have lost many fights. None of these three boxers fought over 100 pro fights, never mind 200 and over. That automatically disqualifies Marciano and the rest to become the greatest of all time. Fighting 15 to 20 round bouts, as I pointed above, played a de facto key to victory in fights during the golden era, especially boxers who did not rely on technique but had confidence in their stamina to win. Boxing fights can be won many different ways, and that is just one of them. Boxers today don't jump up and down different weight classes because they're simply scared to get punished, even though ironically there are 17 divisions per round today, making it easier to attain a world title. Not the case in the past. Catch weights also did not quite exist. Let's stop right there. So there's a sentiment by certain purists and certain historians and certain fans out here that, one, the current fighters today are not fighting enough. The past boxers fought a lot more. And if the present fighters were to fight as much as those past fighters did, they would get a lot of losses on their records. Then, on top of that, we're going to deal with another point. But first, let's address that first point. I want to show you how hypocritical people are today. So, case in point, this person refers to some names here of who he thinks is the top 10 boxers in history. And he starts off with Sugar Ray Robinson, who had 200 fights. Okay, it was 175 wins, 19, I believe this is maybe 19 losses, 6 draws, and 2 no contests. Then you have Henry Armstrong, 151 fights, 151 wins, 21 losses, 9 draws. Harry Kreb, 298 wins, 17 losses. Willie Pep, 230 wins, 11 losses, 1 draw. Joe Gans, 120 wins, 8 losses, 9 draws. Let's just stop right there, okay? That's way a lot. Now I want to show you guys something, first of all. And the reason I'm going to show this is because I listen to these people say the same shit over and over and over again, and nobody with half a brain actually critically analyze what they're saying. I'm going to show you by example. So let's start with Sugar Ray Robinson. Oh, sorry, my bad. I guess I'm starting with Joe Gans. Joe Gans was a fighter that fought in the early 1900s, from 1910 all the way up to the year, uh, what the hell? Oh, he died in 1910. My bad. He debuted in 1893 and he finished fighting in 1909. Okay, which is about it's about 26 years. Okay, of fighting. Now, what this guy is saying is that when Joe Gans began boxing, he fought a number of times a year. So it's 1894. He fought like 1894, he fought like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 15 times, right? 15 times in 1894. Now, all of that sounds well and good. But as you scroll up Joe Gans' career, you're going to notice something. If you're paying attention, you're going to notice that he's fighting a lot of guys in the year who haven't had a lot of fights. And this goes on all the way up until 1897, right? And then he starts to fight some fights during that time, which have fighters who have actually had some fights under their belt, and then he goes and just fights whoever. Because see, back in the day, people just fought. You know, if you didn't have no experience, too bad. You just fight whoever. You might fight a guy, might just pick a guy off the street and just fight him. All right. Guy might just want to fight Joe Gans, and so he'll fight him, right? And that's just the way how it went. It wasn't organized like today. So when these guys had 15 fights or 17 fights or 20 fights a year, out of those 20 fights for the year, they may fight 1 or 2 significant high-quality fights. Guys who really are worth the while fighting. In other words, the rest was like sparring. You know, we hear about, sometimes they say, you know, it's interesting, man. These days, people are so much more critical of boxers than in the past. So today, I'm going to show you something. Today, anyway, remember Danny Garcia faced Rod Sonka? People thought it was a mismatch. Well, what do you think about the past, where somebody who has no fights at all, just debuted against a professional fighter who has had so many fights under his belt and so much experience? Huh? Isn't that not a mismatch? Okay then. But unfortunately for a lot of people, they can't see through the bullshit that these guys are talking. So the claim that these guys fight 17 to 20 times a year, the question that you're really supposed to ask is not how many times a year these guys are fighting, but actually what are the quality fights that these guys are fighting? What's the level of competition they're actually fighting? Out of those 17 fights, how many of those fights are not rematches that shouldn't even happen because you beat the guy so bad, it's just another mismatch? How many of them are not rematches, and how many of them are high quality, top tier fights? That's how you critically assess something. But I'll show you something else, and this is where the hypocrisy comes from. These so-called purists will say, oh, you know, Joe Gans, you know, well, you know, back in the day, he was still fighting a lot, and even though they may have been bums or cab drivers, as we like to call them, you know, he was doing it very regularly. All right, fair enough. So then we shouldn't have a problem. We definitely shouldn't have a problem with Danny Garcia facing Rod Sonka. We shouldn't have a problem with that, right? We shouldn't have a problem with Errol Spence Jr. facing Mikey Garcia, where you guys are saying, oh, he's a bully, and it's a mismatch fight, right? We shouldn't have a problem when Floyd Mayweather faced Andre Berto as his last fight, right? We shouldn't have a problem with Deontay Wilder, all those fights before, because they're saying, oh, he's knocking out all these people and it's not good. But Deontay Wilder was fighting regularly every year, and you know, he said I was trying to fight 3, 4, 5 times a year like the throwback fighters. But all of a sudden, that wasn't good enough, right? So all of a sudden, these purists are like, oh, he's not fighting nobody. And only now he's fighting some people after he got a title. He's a low reigning champion, but he ain't fought nobody. Which is it? Because you can't, at one hand, as a boxing historian or purist, talk about guys fighting 17 fights a year when only 1 or 2 of them are worth the while to talk about, because you'll sound like a mother effing hypocrite if you have to criticize Deontay Wilder or Floyd Mayweather or Danny Garcia or any of these known modern day fighters, because all of a sudden they're not fighting the level of competition you come to expect of them. That's the hypocrisy of boxing. A lot of these people bitch and moan, but when you really break down what they're doing, they're trying to equate the past greats and the quality of opposition they're facing on a regular basis with present day people. But if you take the shit that they were doing back then and apply it to now, you're not happy about it. Like I said, I'm going to offend some people because you've been talking a load of shit all the time. So that's why I said there are different eras. And you can't be praising the past to denigrate the present. It's always been my point. So you can't, you know what they say also? And it's so full of bullshit because, you know, this dude said, he said it right here. He said they were fighting 15 to 20 round bouts. As I pointed out, played a de facto key in the victory of fights in the golden era. Especially boxers who did not rely on technique, but had confidence in their stamina to win. That's fucking Deontay Wilder. He's a throwback fucking fighter. It's not so much on technique, but it's his stamina, his conditioning. He could go 20 rounds, right? But all of a sudden, Deontay Wilder is the worst possible heavyweight of the world. I'm hearing this from purists and and stupid ass boxers. Which is it? Which is it? You can't now go and praise guys like Jimmy Wild. And you can't go and praise guys like Jack Dempsey. And you can't go and praise guys like that. And then you turn around, which was an inspiration, by the way, for Mike Tyson, and you turn around and you want to disrespect Deontay Wilder. What are you saying? He's a throwback fighter. He's trying to do the things that the past greats were doing, but you're not satisfied with that. Why? Because you are actually a hypocrite. You coming to expect high quality opposition all the fucking time. But yet, you guys have a critique for Mayweather. You guys have a critique for Muhammad Ali. You guys have a critique for every single modern day boxer. But you can't understand that these modern day boxers are actually facing the same or more high level competition than the past greats did in less fights, because some of those fights are just so much mismatches, they're just glorified sparring matches. People were criticizing Floyd Mayweather for an exhibition fight against Tenshin Nagasaki, right? They criticized him for that. Oh, it's a performance thing and all this bullshit. But Joe Louis could do it. Fuck, Sugar Ray Robinson could do it. In fact, Sugar Ray Robinson, you know what? Let me show you guys. Because this is some bullshit. And that's the problem with Sugar Ray Robinson. At the end of his career, around Floyd's age, alright, was fighting guys 3, 4, and fucking 1. Look at right here. Tenshin Nagasaki, whatever his name is, at least he's good in some area. Kickboxing. What are you really saying here? And it was a no contest fight, by the way. Shit. Roy Jones Jr. could beat some scrub back in a back alley somewhere. Nobody says nothing about Roy. Nobody says nothing about Roy. But Floyd can't do that shit. And that's where the purists and all these people are coming out, oh, Floyd this. Floyd fights Conor McGregor. It's noted as a boxing match in history. Sugar Ray fucking Robinson. Let's get real now. Alright? Sugar Ray Robinson goes and faces Maurice Rolbert, who's a mother freaking debutante. He doesn't even have a reputation like freaking Conor McGregor. He goes and faces Billy Thornton, who's another mother freaking debutante. He faces Bernie Reynolds, who's a mother freaking debutante. That's part of his 200 fights. Y'all don't have no problem with that. So-called mother freaking purists. But Floyd can't do that. He can't do it. What are you angry about? Oh, it's a farce for boxing. If it's a farce for boxing, why aren't you down on Sugar Ray Robinson for doing that shit? And you know what the funny thing? That was a fucking 10-rounder. So this is the shit that gets me mad. Because nobody's doing their homework. Nobody's critically thinking out here. Nobody. They're just like freaking sheep. They follow whatever somebody else says. And at the top of this motherfucker's list is Sugar Ray Robinson. Like a fucking parrot. Sugar Ray Robinson, 175, 19, 6, and 2. Sugar Ray Robinson hardly went past 10 rounds. He had 10-round fights for most of his career. He had some 15-round fights for championship fights. But most of his career was freaking 10 rounds. How is Sugar Ray Robinson at the top of your list? If you say that the guys used to back in the day go 20 rounds. Fuck, Sugar Ray Robinson was in the 50s, 40s, and 60s. What are you really saying? Do we want to go through the rest of this list? Fuck it. Let's do it. Henry Armstrong. We got Willie Pep here. We have Henry Armstrong somewhere. Henry Armstrong did some great things, and Willie Pep and all these guys. But a lot of their freaking records are inflated, man. Let's talk some glorified sparring here. This is Willie Pep. These would be good opposition for him. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. This guy got some experience. Look at this shit. And this goes on for a while. Look, look, look. Look. These guys ain't coming in to win. You know they're coming in to lose. This one's kind of okay. Look. Look how many fights he has already. Same year. Lots of fights. But it's just fucking glorified sparring, man. This guy had an inflated record. This was good. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. No named opponents because of course he's early in the game. But we could just go on and on and on. It's a lot of fights in the same year in 1941. But ain't nobody to test this ninja. You get what I'm saying? Nobody. Nobody's testing him. And this is back in the day where still people used to kind of fight everybody. Still used to fight everybody, right? You got to see what I'm talking about, man. It's a lot of fights, but a lot of them are beatable. The fights don't go very long. Look at this. This is a fucking 4-rounder. Another 4-rounder. This didn't even go 8 rounds. That means this guy wasn't even on his level. You know what I'm saying? It's easy work. These guys will move up slow. If they were moved up at all. Now, let me show you some real shit here. So, Willie Pep faces Leo Francis, 4, 6, and 5. What the hell? Why are you facing this dude? You're so many fights in, you got a lot of experience. Why are you facing a guy 4, 6, and 5? Just imagine that happening in present day time. See, that's the hypocrisy I hate. Now, I can understand him facing Chalky Wright for the championship and winning it against Chalky Wright. That's good. He had some other good fighters he faced before he faced this championship fight, by the way. But my point being, a lot of those fights, and throughout the guy's career, a lot of fights. I'm gonna show you some more. So his career is there. He has a title defense and stuff like that. He's facing some good guys, and then bam, just like that, out of clear blue sky, boom. Remember, he has a lot of fights. He faces this dude. For what? Why is this guy even in the ring with you? He's knocked down 7 times. Why is this guy in the ring with you? Help me understand that question. I mean, you see it over and over again. 12, 13, and 6. Why is this guy in the ring with you? I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on. I could find it all the time. You know, the Rod Suckles of the world. Why is this guy in the ring with you? You get what I'm saying? So yeah, he's fighting regularly, but the level of competition he's fighting. Why is this guy in the ring with him? You know what I'm saying? Why is this guy in the ring with him? I mean, do I need to continue to say what I'm? It's just to keep them sharp. It's like sparring. It's a glorified sparring match. So when these guys start talking the bullshit that they talk, you got to hold them to their bullshit. Because if the present fighters today were to do something like that, as much as people say, oh, we would like to see them fight more regularly every year. Yeah, but you want quality. You want high quality fights. You want to fight like what happened with my boy Sean Porter versus, say, Ugas. You want fights like that. At least there's a certain standard to it. You want what is called levels in boxing. If a man is a champion, you don't want him facing a prospect. You don't want a champion facing a fucking prospect. Come on now. You don't want a champion facing a debutante. There are people now in boxing. The boxing has become stratified, so people work their way up. A champion should either face contenders or he should face another champion. There's levels to boxing now. Back in the day, they didn't hold fast to that because it was primitive. Today, we would say that's sparring work. I could go through 3 of those guys in one day, 4 of them, 5 of them in one day. I could have a nice inflated record just like those guys back in the day. It don't mean shit, though. And so I just have to go in on this. These so-called fucking boxing purists who don't know shit about what they're saying. And I don't have a problem ripping these guys to shreds because I actually do my homework. And then they want to come at me and say, oh, you're tearing down the past greats. Fuck you. You're the one tearing down boxing with your bullshit. You didn't have respect for the fact that the present greats today have evolved from the past, and boxing itself is becoming evolved and refined. You want your ass is so far into the nostalgia of the past that you want to dig up stuff and show that the past is better than today. No, it's not better than today. No, we don't want to go back 200 years into time. We don't want to do that. Alright? Not to mention how fucking boring some of those fights were in the past. Punch, punch, clinch, breathe on each other. 20 rounds of that bullshit. Alright? Y'all. Because, see, a lot of you people, if you all only watch the film on what I'm talking about, all you gotta do is Google it. YouTube's got it all now. And you just put in the names and see how freaking boring those fights were. There's a lot of clinching. You guys talk about, oh, the fighters today, they're so boring. And what the fuck? What do you do? You definitely ain't gonna be watching those past greats then. The ones that these purists hold so highly. So I'm saying this so that people would understand. And once again, I'm not trying to disrespect the past greats, obviously. No. I'm trying to show you that boxing as a sport has evolved from since then. A lot. Not in ways that everybody wants it to be. It's not always that certain, as I said before, certain techniques and certain skills have been lost with time. Some people go back in time, get them, and come back forward. So certain things are not practiced anymore. And other things have evolved and become something different. So boxing as a sport has evolved because of certain things that happen in the sport. And what is wrong with some people is they're not flexible enough to evolve with the sport. And since a lot of people don't even understand what the freaking hell is going on in that ring, which pisses me off. You can see I'm pretty angry about it. They don't even know what's going on in that ring, what the strategy, what's the plan of the boxers in the ring, and how far ahead of any other freaking contact sport boxing is. They have no appreciation for it, and no one's educating them on it. It's only the Keith Thurmans of the world that's educating people on boxing. You got guys like boxers themselves, like Danny Garcia and Sean Porter and other people who box on the top level and actually in the sport of boxing who are educating people on what's actually happening in that ring. All right. Sometimes Roy Jones Jr. does that, but because of the political environment Roy Jones Jr. was in, he couldn't say everything that he wanted to say. So I share this with you guys because I find that there's a lot of ignorance about the sport of boxing. There's a lot of ignorant people out here who don't know what the fuck they watching, right? To be honest with you. And it pisses me off. And I'm glad for the Boxing Voice because the Boxing Voice asks some questions that need to be asked and stuff. They're not really affiliated with anybody per se. Some of the some of the channels are just really just stupid, to be honest with you, because they don't even understand what they're seeing, and they're all caught up in, again, power and strength and knockouts and bullshit like that. And I'm not saying that boxing isn't fun to see a knockout, but if you don't even understand what's going on, why the knockout's happening, in my personal opinion, then you're just as dumb as everybody else watching the fight, because you don't even understand what was going on. You know, now I can actually see when a guy's about to get stopped. I can see it now. You know, I'm like, he going through now, right? And you can see it 1 or 2 rounds before, because when you can see the chess match and the chess play on what's about to go down, you kind of know, okay, I see what he's doing. He's going to set him up. Here it comes, right? So that's kind of cool when you can see exactly what's happening. Or sometimes in the early rounds, you can see what's happening before it even happens, and you're like, oh, okay, let's see where this goes, right? That's cool, because when you can understand that as a fan, what's happening in a boxing match. Now, I'm not saying that all boxing matches are interesting. Some boxing matches for me are just boring as hell because they're very repetitive. The boxers, not only are they not doing much, but also they should do something, but they're not doing it because they don't have the skills to do it. So I watched just recently there. I watched a fight, and it was super duper boring because the guys were trying to feint to come in, but they were afraid to come in on each other. So there was no punches being thrown, a lot of feints. You know, there's something called unnecessary feinting. That's another thing we must talk about at some point in time. Where your feint don't mean shit. You're feinting, the other guy's not biting on your feint. He's trying to feint at you. You're not biting on his feint. So neither of you are doing anything. And so the whole fight, y'all are just feinting one another and nothing's going on. That's the height of boredom, because you don't know how to feint. You don't know your intention. You're supposed to be able to. A feint is like I'm going through with a punch and then I just pull back on it. I'm going through with a move and I just pull back on it. You know. And then there's some people just so plain, they're really boring. Like, they're very efficient, but they're plain, but they're boring. So I can be bored by boxing too, right? I have a limit to what, you know, where I just don't see no skill or nothing in it, and it's boring. So it's not just rock'em sock'em. Sometimes rock'em sock'em is interesting, but it's not just rock'em sock'em that bores me with boxing. You know what I'm saying? Anywho, so we just showed you that was Willie Pep. Let me show you some others. Henry Armstrong. I mean, which way do you want to go? You want to go to the end of his career? Do you want to go to the beginning of his career? I mean, whatever you want to do. You know what I'm saying? Now, for instance, Henry Armstrong faces a guy. He's got a whole bunch of fights. He's an oldish dude now. He's facing a guy 15-2-0, right? Dude is taking a big step up. 15-2-0. It's not so bad because he's actually on the winning side of things. So 15-2-0, not bad. Okay, I'm giving that a pass. Let me give you another one though. 17-1-0. Dude gets knocked down 3 times in the 5th. He stopped in the 6th. That's it. He's not doing too bad. At the end of his career, he's fighting relatively good competition. Of course, not super duper duper regularly, but he's still fighting relatively good competition. He's fighting the same fighters sometimes over and over. And usually guys with promise. I mean, he's knocking down these guys and stuff. Again, a lot of experience he has. They now starting the game. It's still not as bad as what we saw with the other 2 boxers, right? And this is to the end of his career. All right. So some of these guys are going to turn out to be good fighters anyway. So, let me show you anyway. Alright, so this is more to the middle. This is the middle of his career. He's facing some inexperienced fighters. He's facing some experienced fighters. Alright, this is just wrong right here. What you doing? This guy's just 6 fights short of being a debutante. This is ridiculous. I mean, this guy, okay, maybe we can give him a pass, but I mean, come on now. I mean, the guy gets knocked out anyway. Alright, anyway. And he's featherweight champion too. It's just so messed up. So you see guys, they're awful, but they're still not that bad. I mean, this guy should never have faced him at all. That's just easy work. This guy too, he's too young, too green. You know what I'm saying? This is just stay busy work. Stay busy. So there's a lot of stay busy fights, like all this shit. What the hell? How do you draw with a guy like this? I don't know. This guy, his very first fight was a loss, like Armstrong, and I don't know why he's even in the ring with him. Alright, so you get my point though. Most of these fights here, again, are just fodder. They're just preparatory fights, right? Here's what it is. So my point anyway is this, alright? That Henry Armstrong, another very great, if you're Henry Armstrong, and you won the featherweight title of the world, what are you doing facing a guy 10, 11, and 4? Of course you're going to starch his ass, right? You know, this guy still has a little bit more experience. You have like a bunch of fights now. But you are facing a guy for the Western featherweight title who's 18-6-2. The guy has no experience near to you. So of course you're going to starch his ass, right? This guy's more guy on your level, this guy's more guy on your level, right? So I'm just saying that there's a lot of, this guy's 16-2-1. How did you expect him to be able to face you at, you know, I'm just saying, and you're in your prime? I mean, come on now. So that's the kind of stuff that, if that was done today with any of the boxers today, you know what would have happened. Here's some, so all I'm saying is this. And this is just one topic. There's many topics with the past greats we could talk about. And you know, there's this stupid idea that, oh, there was only one belt or only 2 belts. Well, there were 2 belts, right? It was the NYSAC, which is the New York State Athletic Commission belt, and then it was the NBA, the National Boxing Association belt, right? You get the 2, you were undisputed, right? Which is known as the WBA now and the WBC. The thing about it, though, is they're talking about, you know, there was less belts, therefore, you know, there was less champions, therefore, you know, boxing was much harder to become world champion and all this bullshit. But you know what was a part of it that a lot of these guys miss, and they really don't see? Nobody's critically assessing these guys, right? Winning the championships, cool. Keeping the championships is another story. And on top of that, what good is it to have a championship belt if at the time the competition that's there available to you, right, which you're facing competition matches, is not the best competition because it's weak. Whether it's because of segregation, whether it's because you just want to avoid certain fighters because you're the champion, you can choose who you want to face. So at the end of the day, a championship belt is not everything. It's who you fight and who you beat. It comes down to that, always. Always. And if you have beaten a guy so easily, I don't care if he's an ATG or whatever, what are you doing rematching him? Just imagine if present day, all our champions faced each other, we beat everybody, I become undisputed champion. Who do I have left to fight? Well, there's always a new up-and-comer, but he's still a fucking up-and-comer. He's not even a contender. So you clean out all the up-and-comers, you clean out all the people who didn't even get the chance to become contenders. Who you got left to face? Debutantes, guys off the streets, young prospects. That's what you end up facing. So your quality of opposition is still low. It's about quality of opposition. So the present day system, which shows that boxing has evolved, puts people on different tiers. And okay, so you may not have all the belts because of political reasons or whatever, but people will recognize you as the king of the division based on who you beat and how you're reigning as champion. It's really that simple. It's more unofficial that you're the man of the division, but it is what it is. That's why Sergey Kovalev was the man of the division, not Adonis Stevenson, because the quality of opposition Sergey Kovalev was dispatching of made him the man. Yes, he had also the majority of belts, but it was also, you can be a belt collector. The belts don't mean shit. That's why Floyd would say, belts don't make me. You hear Canelo say, a belt don't make me. Belts come and go. The level of competition I face is what makes me. That makes sense? And so a lot of these old timers and purists and nostalgic people and so-called boxers who say we need to go back, boxing is dead or whatever the bullshit that they say. A lot of times they punch in numbers, but they don't factor in quality of opposition. And what they will cite is, well, this guy, he faced this guy 1 week and he rematched him the next week. And be like, so? He lost, and so he wants to rematch him immediately. Modern day boxers say the same thing. I'm ready to go. Very next day, I'm ready to go. But that's not how it works. You spread out fights during the year to build them up, to hype them up so more people will come and see them. Alright? It's much more systematic now because we've learned over time that really a boxer on average, all of those boxers, even those the throwback boxers, they fight on average 2 fights that are really good and top tier fights a year. That's it. Maybe 3. It's really 2.5, I think, but maybe 3. That's it. So that's why you get 2 major events a year. There's no reason to face people who are just glorified sparring. And we see how people criticize Floyd for glorified sparring, even though it's just an exhibition match. So I mean, let's be real here, man. Alright guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Leave your comments in the comment section. Spread this video to other people. You guys have a great one.